Hey guys, I'm Naya and welcome back to the channel. So with the 250th YCSs taking place last weekend and different regionals and events and all of that happening in the last couple of days, I figured I would go over all of the deck lists that are... By this time, I wanted to wait a couple days, and by this time there's a ton of deck lists online, so I just went on Carlonche store like I always do. So the source is always on the picture, it's from Carlonche store, and they always credit the YouTube channel, the players and all of that, so everything is on the screen and we're gonna go through all of these deck lists. Like, I think it's really interesting to talk about this right now because we're in a diverse meta. We're gonna go through a bunch of different decks and I also grouped them together, so I'm going to have the timestamps and all of that for you so you can check out separate decks if you want. But for right now, the first deck we're gonna be covering is going to be Branded. So this first deck list, I think it's cool because of Branded in White. I think Branded in White is overall just a nice card because it grants you additional plays and you can go for different lines if you play Branded in White as opposed to not playing it where you don't have those lines available for you. But overall this list is like, it's interesting because it only has 2 albas, which I think 3 is like almost mandatory at this point because it's very useful in your combo. There's 2 Mercurier though, which a lot of people like. They also play 2 Cartesia, but this list doesn't. So, and there's 3 Saronir, not just 1. So some of the ratios are a bit different, and they decided to main deck Nibiru, which I think is kind of bold, and also Super Polymerization, which seems like it could work out very well in the main deck right now. So overall, I think this list is solid. Just the ratios are like the Saronirs and all of that, but it was just their meta call. So the extra deck is quite standard, and the side deck is very, very basic for a Branded deck. Eclipse is in the side. There's also Droll evenly, of course crossed out. But Droll, like, overall just seems like a very, very popular hand trap from last weekend. And moving on to the next list, we have the Predaplan stuff. So together with the Keeper of Dragon Magic, again Nibiru in the main deck, only 1 Mercurier, only 1 Cartesia, but there is the Spring and Skit, 2 albas. So of course they needed to cut down on some cards to fit the Predaplan stuff in. They decided to play only Banishment though, so no Retribution, no Albion. Maybe that's standard for a Predaplant list, I'm not as familiar with those. But I think like getting Albion off of Lost and just sending Retribution to get back Branded Fusion is just very, very free. Gets you a draw, thins out your deck. I think there's just a lot of positive things about that engine, so... Like I said, I might be wrong when it comes to this list in particular. And then in the side deck here we have Expulsion. There's Gamma, which saw play in quite a few lists. And in Branded, it's very useful if you go Branded Fusion. And you hope they ash it if you have Gamma at this point, I think. So yeah, I mean, Jinzo in the side. We'd like to see that. This next one, again, Jinzo in the side. I'm a huge fan of that. I think it's great seeing Jinzo see play. With this list, we have 2 albas, but there is a third one in the side deck. It's just such a nice going second card as well. Just a good board breaker by itself, I think. And other ratios are quite standard. 1 Mercurier and Nightmare is in the main deck. And I saw that in some other lists as well. I mean, it's kind of free, right? If you think about it, to just put it in the main deck. I'm not against it. Like, there's Crossout in the main deck as well. However, it did cut down, like the entire list cut down on some deck slots. Because only 1 Nibiru for the Crossout. You know, you have Impermanence, you have Ash. But other than that, I guess there's Called By. But that's pretty much it. So it's not a lot of tech slots. If you really think about it, other decks like have a bit more. You know, this one has 9, 10, 11 tech slots, and this one has 9, 10, I think around 10. So, you know, whereas this one only has about 6, 7, maybe 8. But by giving up a couple of the slots, I mean, I'm not counting Crossout necessarily as a tech slot because it doesn't progress anything. It just prevents you from being hindered. So yeah, like I said, you know, they traded the tech slots that would be useful against opponents for Crossout, which just protects you, which is not bad. You know, you want your Branded Fusion to resolve. You don't want to get Nibiru'd. You have an Impermanence target as well, which I think is important because a lot of times you would be prepared and then get impermed, and it's just like, well, what can I do? So yeah, the next list is Springans. So I'm not familiar with the Springans deck, so we're just going to go through the list. Basically, it's Springans stuff. You have the Therian package, there's Cyberstein with Naturia Extario, a small Spright package, which I think is really cool. And we see the recurring theme of Gamma, Ash, Imperm, and of course you're going to see a lot of prosperity in all of the people's builds because, like, you know, you want consistency. And other than that, like I said, don't know much about the Springens deck, but I think it's amazing that it got top 64. And for the XCs, you have the Gymbuster, there's Baguska, you have Zeus, Lambda for Gamma. It just seems like a very, very solid deck, you know? And Droll in the side, again, like I said, we're going to see Droll a ton. I think it's a weird hand trap, personally, but I understand why people would play it. I just think it's kind of weird in a very diverse meta because you don't know for a fact you're going to be preparing for... You don't know for a fact you're going to be facing the decks you are maybe preparing for, because there's so many decks in the meta. Like, you would listen to people's deck profiles and they would say that they played like 7 or 8 different decks in Swiss, which is kind of wild. The next one is Dragon Link with Bestios. Is the 3 other ones, the Druid Worm, Saronir, and Baldrake, and then 3 Searchers, 3 Lobelion, the very standard Dragon Link stuff, which just, you know, brings back a ton of cool memories. Some bad ones as well. We all know how dominant Dragon Link was. Gamma, again, like we see a ton. There's Pancratops in the side deck, which I think is really interesting. And 3 skill drain for going first. So, yeah, I mean, Dragon Link, I love it. I think it's cool. This next one is a regional. So Dark World is going to be a bit better on the regional level, I think. So this is top 8 at a regional, and you can see, of course, like in the extra deck, for example, there's the hand loop links. You have a bunch of draw cards. You have tasking together with a ton of different targets, actually. You have a bunch of targets for tasking, so I think it's cool that they play it. And then you have all of the dangers and, of course, your Dark World stuff. So... I mean, like I said, you know, it's a deck that at a regional level, I feel like it can do quite well, but we didn't exactly see it have great success at the 250th. But still, I think it's cool seeing it do well because it's also quite budget. So for anyone trying to pick up that deck, I think that's cool. So yeah, then we have, I think, 2 Joy-Con lists. And from comparing them, it's very interesting because they are not that similar. This one, the second one, for example, has 3 Delta, whereas this one only has 1, and they have many more tech cards because they decided to cut down on preparation. So they have 3 Ash, 2 Nibiru, 2 Droll, 3 Veiler, 3 Impermanence, and this next one only pretty much has Lancia. There's Herald, of course, and then there's these going second cards here, and I guess Silence is going first or second. You have Harpies, but like 2 prep, you have the Herald of Perfection package as well, 3 Delta, like I said, which is taking up a ton of your slots while still having like 42 cards. So this other one I like more. I think it's very clean just because you have so many flex spots, and I think that's very important right now. But to each their own, of course. Like both of them played the Magician of Black Chaos Max. This one has Crystal Wing as well, together with Solkin. This one doesn't. So they're quite different, and I like to see that. As much as this format pains me to like prepare against decks, I think it's cool seeing like this diversity in deck building as well. So just comparing the side decks, Kurikara, here we saw on stream how important Kurikara was in London. Now this next one is Flunder, and we also have 2 Flunder deck lists, and they're also very different, like, between them. This one has no extra deck, of course, the next one does, with just a couple, like, useful things you can have in there. And as for the ratios of birds, this one has the, I think it's called Snowl. They decided to play this, and then 2 Empen, 1 Toucan, 2 Stree, and 3 of the other ones, and the next list has 3 Empen, 3 of the other ones, 2 Toucan, 1 Stree. So the ratios are like just completely different. And I really like the Jack in Hand here and in the Joy-Con lists as well. I think one of them had a Jack in the Hand, and I just really like this card. I think it's so cool that so many different decks are able to use it. Like, for example, Chai Brigade used to do the Bird Up version. And this list only plays 3 pot cards, whereas the next one actually plays 8 of them. So, like, yeah, you know, Book of Moon, Dark Ruler. And this other one has Raigeki, there's Impermanence, there's Evenly, like so many different things, and I really like seeing that. And also this list decided to, for this list they decided to side deck 3 Shifter, whereas the other one didn't play any at all. So I think Flunder was just a good choice for this event because you do not get hindered by pretty much anything. So any kind of matchup you go up against, I feel like you should be okay. But sometimes it's a bit weird even for this deck, so that's why we didn't see exactly a ton of Flunder players top. But still, you know, we have the 4th place in Los Angeles and the top 64 in London. And then we have a bunch of Kashtira lists. So we're just going to go through those. This first one, I don't even know how to describe it. Like, weird, I guess you could say. There's so many 2-ofs, and just 2-ofs like scare me because they are very irregular for deck building, I feel like. But I like it. I think the player really knew what they were doing. You know, they got 2nd place, of course. And I'm pretty sure that with the ratios and the side deck, which are also like, you know, just 1-offs for tasking and all of that, 2-off, 1-off, of course. I think with those ratios, they had their siding patterns worked out. So this list, I think, is like a perfect example for everything you can run in Kashtira if you want. And they just decided to run everything, which I'm not against. This next one is Kashtira Runick. So this one is 2 Desires and just has all of the Runick cards, and then 2-off, just a slightly smaller package. But of course, it worked out very well for them, getting 3rd place in Los Angeles. And then we have a couple of more standard ones, but before that, we also have the Raid Raptor package, which they mentioned is actually to go for a rank 4 Xyz, which is very easy in their standard unicorn combo. So you can go for a Nightmare that's protected. You can protect your Rice card. Make sure to watch the deck profile. I think it's really cool. It's an interesting package. And other than that, seems like a very standard Kashtira list, as well as these next couple of ones. Book of Moon, Enemy Controller, I think is a really, really good card right now, especially with a ton of people playing Ibli, not just in Kashtira, but in Spright as well. So yeah, I think Ibli is cool. Like, I mean, it's not cool to go up against, but like if you're able to use it, I think it's cool because we're in such a weird meta where you don't really know what to expect in terms of decks and in terms of the tech cards that the people are going to be running. So this next one is also quite standard. 1 random Cyclone in the main deck, which, you know, sure. And then we have another top 16 list with Mourner and Veiler. It's just generic hand traps, but I think, I don't know, it's interesting because there's a ton of other tech cards you could run, which might prove themselves to be a bit better, especially comparing all of these lists. Not a lot of them play Veiler or Mourner. There's literally like maybe one list, one Drytron list played Veiler. But like I said before, you know, to each their own, whatever you want to do. I love Book of Moon. I think it's very useful. There's Kurikara again, Evenly, which sees a ton of play. This next one is again a Kashtira with a lot of taskings. There's 1 Engage. Wow. So there's Engage, there's Anchor, and there's Afterburner. I guess Engage is like a tasking target to then get a negation or a pop. Wow, this list is so weird. There's literally Dark Hole, there's Harpies, Lightning Storm, and you still have, you know, your engine, of course. And then also an Ego Booster, of course, in the side deck. That's okay. I like this list. I think that this list is cool. So yeah, then we have the 1st place, 2 Cyclone, there's Gamma, there's Mourner as well again. There's 1 Impermanence, which is also quite random, but I guess to round off the 40 count. 2 Book of Moons though, 1 in the side, Ibli in the side. Yeah, okay. And then we have a couple Labyrinth builds, I think 2 or 3. This one is the one we saw on stream with the virus cards and all of that. There's actually statues in the side deck. There's Droll in the side deck. Wow, that's just so interesting. There's a ton of the furniture, right? Usually people will just play like 3-1 maybe. And then these are very much up for debate. There's not a ton of like spot removal. If you really look at it, there's punishment, but there's no compose. There's no like overroot. There's pretty much nothing. There's just the floodgate. There's all of your engine, a couple pot cards, and then just a ton of monsters. So I guess they really were afraid of like breaking and you need to see your engine. So comparing it to the other build, for example, there's not as many monsters, but there is a ton of trap cards. And I understand that you would much rather have consistency and access to your engine. I think that's important, but like it's just so funny because this one is so focused on trap cards and the other one is not. So I guess both of them are just options for you guys. So feel free to like pause and look through all of the lists because I'm gonna go a tiny bit faster. I don't want this video to be very, very long, and I want you guys to see all of the deck lists. So this next couple of ones are just a bunch of Spright Evo Twin Runick builds. So you can really look through them, compare some of the Runick ratios. This one only has 3 Lila, 1 Kisaku, and the Frost, but there's 3 of the spell card, and this next one only plays 1 of the spell card. So you can really like play around with the ratios, I think. And then together with that, you also see how much space you have for tech cards. This person played Kurikara, evenly matched, talents. There's 1 starter, of course, and the other list is Dark Ruler in the main deck, Nibiru in the main deck as well. Let's compare some of the other lists as well. So this one has 3 and 1 and 1. Where's the spell cards? 1 spell card, okay. 3 evenly, Runick, 2 starter. So like, I think it's so cool. Like I said, you know, you just really decide for yourself whatever you want to do. 3, 3, 1, 1 again. 3 evenly. I think, it's a very similar list, but there's 2 Kurikara in the main deck. So, like I said, you know, just go through the list, guys, and just decide for yourself if there's anything that you would like to build. You have a bunch of ideas here. So I really like Grave of the Super Ancient Organism. I really like Chaos Hunter together with a Mannequin Cat. You're able to play under Shifter with the help of it, and of course it's nice against Kashtira. And then we have a couple Marincess builds where Marincess is just like, it's only 18 tech cards and then you have your engine and that's pretty much it. So you can just compare both lists and see like which tech cards maybe suit you. This next one plays 2 trap cards actually. There's 3 of Book, 3 Veiler, 3 Gamma, 3 Ash, 3 Impermanence. And the other one is very similar, but they decided to play Talents and also Gozen match in the main deck. But there's Gozen in the side in this next one. So Marincess does feel quite standard. You can just decide to like switch up between main and side. And then we have a bunch of mathmech lists. Like there's just a ton. So literally like go through them here with me on the screen. And you can decide for yourself if you want to build any of these versions. Joel in the main deck, Mourner, Veiler, Ash. But these lists are a bit different. If you're comparing them to the other like decks in the meta, because these lists usually play Small World, so a ton of choices in here are because of Small World bridges. So you have Dogoran here and Jizukiro here, for example. The side decks are cool. I like the Eccentric. I think this card is really, really useful. This next list is also quite similar. Just tech cards in your engine pretty much. This next one as well, there's a ton of Joel in the main deck. And I really hope all of the people that actually main decked the Joel, you know, went up against matchups where Joel was useful in game 1, which does seem not that unlikely, but still you don't know what you're up against. So I think maining Joel is a tiny bit risky, but that's just my opinion. This next one is like Mathmech, but has the Formut's Keeper and some of the other like Cyberse stuff. Lady Debug, there's Ibli. So this one is a bit out of the ordinary when you compare Mathmech lists. This one has Santa Claus and also Eccentric in the main deck. Droll again in the main deck. 2 Update Jammer, 2 Axis. This is quite standard probably. This next one is Naturia Runick. Naturia Runick lists overall I think are quite standard. You just want to play a bunch of Runick stuff, and of course 3 Tree, 3 Camellia, 3 Mole Cricket, and you have the Sunflower as well. So these ratios, of course the 3 Blessing, because it's just so useful to dodge stuff, to quick synchro, to summon, just play through things. I really like the addition of Foolish Burial Goods, evenly matched in the main deck. And like all of the cards in the extra I think are so amazing. Like you go through Runick stuff, you go through your synchros, you make Barkion, you make a Naturia Beast of course, and then you have access to all of your Exceed monsters as well. Like I don't know, I like Naturia Runick. I get Runick cards are just horrible and annoying and all of that, but I think the deck is cool. Again, we see a couple recurring themes. Chaos Hunter, Grave of the Super Ancient Organism, there's Kaijus of course. I don't know, I like it. I think it's really cool. Bow in the main deck. Bow is not bad. In the mirror match is very useful. Against Labyrinth it's very useful. So I get the choice behind that. Now this one is a pile. Piles just freak me out. I cannot deal with them. It's Scareclaw, it's Kashtira, Adventure, Souls, Destrudo, Hand Traps, Small World. Like I don't know if I would be capable or willing to even go through the thought process of this deck like at home, let alone play an entire YCS. So props to the person getting top 32 with this pile. I don't even know how to go about like trying to figure everything out. There's Perle Rhino, there's Kyoto Waterfront, which I think is amazing. I don't know. I don't even know what to say about this deck. Seriously, like it's cool. It's cool. That's what we're gonna say. Then we have Plunder Runick. I like it. I mean, again, a Runick build, like Runick cards are horrible and all of that. We know that, but they are very useful. So yeah, there's a couple Kaijus. Ash evenly again in the main deck, which is pretty much a standard at this point in time. We have a Punk deck, which this one, I listened to this deck profile and I think it's really cool. The person really knew, I think, what they were doing going up against this meta. They really had everything figured out. Pretty sure this is a deck profile that I listened to, so this was really enjoyable to listen. And of course, a Punk deck doing well is really nice to see. Now this one is a Rikka deck, but it's like plant Rikka. It's not as standard as some of the other Rikka stuff I've seen, like Lone Fire Blossom together with like Naturia stuff down here, the Rose, I think it's Rose Lover or something like that. And there's the Lily Borea Droplet in the main deck. Like this deck is just very random, but I like it. Then we have a couple more Spright things. So this one is not Live Twin. It's just basic Spright. I think I have basic Spright 1 and basic Spright 2, but this one has a Trickstar package, which I think is really, really nice because with the light stage at 3, of course, you're getting access to your level 2. And also the effect where you lock the opponent's zone is so underrated. Like people just don't think about it. And I think it's really cool to utilize that. And there's of course the Melfi stuff, and this last one had, you know, the Dark Beckoning Beast. So this package, Spright is very similar to Tier in that sense, where you just have a ton of different engines you can play and then you just decide what you want to be doing. I really like the Melfi stuff though. I think Melfi stuff is cool. And probably I'm the biggest fan of like Spright Brigade, if I'm really honest. I think the Brigade version is just amazing. I really enjoyed watching it on stream. The 3 of Kit, 2 of Nerva, 1 of Karas, and then you have a bunch of space for everything else. I like it. I think it's really, really cool. And this one is quite similar, but there's no Gamma in the main deck. However, there is Talents, there's Dark Ruler, which they decided to side. So you have different versions. And you have the Melfi stuff with Ding Kong Pham, of course, like popularizing this, and then him doing well in like getting top 16 in London. It's just cool seeing with this deck again. Prosperity, Draw in the main deck, Gamma, and then everything else is quite standard. Ibli in the main deck, so again a good meta call. More Spright, standard stuff except for the Deep Sea Diva. And then we have a couple Sword Soul builds. Sword Soul, we're just gonna go through it like quickly because Sword Soul, like pretty much everything up here is basic. Almost everything is basic, and then you have a couple like tech slots you can just fill however you want. Desires is like pretty much a mandatory card in this deck. I think there's a Circle here, but not in this list, and they decided to play one of the Revive. Other than that, like the extra decks are quite similar. There is Dragite in this one though. And then we have one Tier build, which like, okay, one-offs, of course. 3 of, 1 of. Shadow stuff for, where is it? Winda. There's the King of the Swamp, Polymerization, Ishizu cards. And then there's the Chap card, the Chivi Karma, I think is called, which is seeing play in the Tier builds. Super Poly in the side. I think it's cool seeing Tier do well. Don't even come at me. I think it's cool seeing it get top 32 because it's just the deck is completely destroyed, pretty much. We have a couple Chapchicks builds, not the budget stuff, not just the structure decks. There is Prosperity in both builds. Parallel Exceed is an addition, evenly in the main deck, some Kaijus in the main deck, and then some other Kaijus in this main deck, and there's also the Therian package in this one as well. So you're able to play your theory and stuff if you want. This other build does not, which is also fine. I think like your monsters put up a lot of pressure. It feels like a weird like combination of a combo trap deck. It's just weird. You end on a ton of monsters actually, and then you have these trap cards to like back you up, which I think is very cool. I really like the time space trap hole. And yeah, other than that, like builds are quite similar in terms of like the ratios. Yeah, I think it's pretty much the same, like Arachnokampa at 2. We have Anti-Spell, there's Lancia, Shifter. So the side decks are very different. Kaiju Slumber. I think, is that it? Oh, I think that's it. Okay, so hopefully this video was entertaining. Hopefully I didn't go through the lists too quickly or too slowly. Hopefully you got something out of it. If nothing else, you can literally just pause the video, go through everything yourself slowly and really decide. Listen to the deck profiles. I encourage you. I will always listen to them, like pretty much every single time, because the people will explain their thought process, citing combos, fun facts. Like, you're probably, if you're trying to build a deck, you should do your research in that way as well. So yeah, I mean, hopefully this video, like I said, was helpful and entertaining, and if you liked it, please make sure to like it, sub, check out all the social media, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.